evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours of your day. I'm Michael, the MC for today's adventure, and today's show is the trauma economy, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today is Monday, so we'll have a short visit and update on journaling near the end of the show. But before we do that, before we get to the show, let me introduce the guest or the other host for the show. And so let's go to Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator.
Hello, welcome. I was kind of happy with the role of a guest. I wouldn't have to run any of this. It'd be nice.
Yeah, excuse me, I got used to talking about guests. Next is Willow, our trauma consultant,
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here tonight.
and Deirdre, our development strategist.
Hi, thanks for joining us, everybody.
So if you're viewing live and have any questions or want to add any comments, please feel free to do so, and we'll try and get to that as soon as we can. I would say that our show content is actually a little bit different. If you watched our Thursday show, we were talking about Dennis hosting this week, and he's going to host next week. So pardon the interruption, but we will be back to Dennis's content on next week. And by the way, that's going to be about finding freedom. So I'm going to actually introduce something here in regard to what we're doing today, and that is kind of a two-part show concept. And so the first show, or we're going to do 3 shows this week on 3 different topics. The first show this week is going to be about kind of identifying and becoming aware of a particular issue. And then the second show, which will be airing in 2 weeks after Dennis's week, we'll be talking more about the skills and the solutions. But the idea here is to kind of increase the value delivery that we're trying to getting to the audience. So with that said, the 3 shows that we're going to cover this week, today's show is about the trauma economy. Wednesday's show is going to be about the fear of death, a mistake. And Thursday's show will be about communication, the art of. And so
3 heavy topics. 3 heavy topics
we're gonna really,
for the heavy state of the world.
Amen. Yeah, we're gonna dig in hard and heavy.
All right.
So with the good, the bad, and the ugly in regard to the trauma economy, I'm going to start off with the ugly. And so I've got 3 points. I'll cover those, and then I'll head to our fellow host. But the 3 topics in regard to the ugly. One is trauma creates all kinds of different responses, but one in particular that I think most professionals will identify with is pride. And pride is usually the thing that people blind themselves to what could be potentially some valuable information. And so a lot of people are blinded by pride via their trauma, their traumatic experiences. The second is programming equals repetition. So if you're hearing things repeatedly, more than likely that's an attempt to program your subconscious mind. You should be aware of that. And unfortunately, it's getting pretty ugly out there. And then third is people are being isolated and exploited because of that isolation. And so those are the 3 areas I want to cover in regard to the ugly of the trauma economy. Does anybody have any comments on those?
Gee, I'm thinking of the isolation part. That's that's pretty serious at the moment for everybody. I don't know. How am I coping with it? Just getting out, just getting out anyway, and interacting with people. I think I had
Yeah,
like an awesome
do you see
conversation.
how people are becoming more isolated and in being isolated, being exploited?
Yes, like to begin with, it was until I started like initiating it myself and kind of going, no, I'm just going to go outside and I am still going to talk to my neighbors. I'm still going to just be how I usually am, like month, any other Tuesday for me. I've got neighbors mowing lawns at the moment. Had good conversations. Like, I try not to talk about the situation because then it just draws the heaviness and on the ominousness to it, which I find then people kind of start going into a different direction. So I just keep my normal
But are you keeping
and it
distance
seems to be
from the
rippling out.
neighbors? Like, are you like avoiding hugs and handshakes, or are you just doing
You know,
the usual?
I do usual stuff. I don't know. Is that what neighbors are for? I don't know. Like hugging and everything. I guess, yeah, I do. If I'm really moved by something, or if something's happening to them, and I want to see how they're going. Yeah, I still do.
Well, most of my close friends and we still, hug. We're close in general. It feels, I don't know. I kind of actually fear the isolation. I feel like we need that reassurance. It's good for our system. Not only is it good for our immune system, but it actually produces feel good chemicals that reinforce connection and keep you safer from like developing mental illnesses. I fear anything that disrupts that a little. I'll be flat out honest. That is a fear for me. So I've tried to continue just as I have been, and but also at the same time respecting my friends who don't want to like give me a hug, or because actually I have a really good friend who stopped by today, and I was excited that they decided to stop by my house with their child, and we got to meet their child, which was so cool. Um, but like he has a family who have compromised immune systems, so he was like, he told me beforehand, he's like, I don't really want to like hug or get too close or anything. I he didn't really know how to say that, but he did. I guess I shouldn't say he didn't know how to say that. I was like, it could have been an awkward situation, but instead he just said it. That's what I was trying to say. um but as far as everything else, I've noticed that it's kind of weird. Like I have friends who we're all changing our plans and we're trying to adjust. I don't know. It's this whole fear mentality is kind of like sunk into everybody, and I like even people who are rational and logical. So I don't know where to go from that. I was hoping someone was going to jump in and cut me
As
off,
a
but they
person
didn't.
who's fairly empathic, I'm feeling the heaviness of it inside me somehow.
Mm. I
Uh,
like what Willow was saying about the interconnectedness with body and mind. So that for me, that's how I maintain my well-being. I like what she's saying about social connection does help maintain well-being. That even if my neighbors like do talk about okay the ominous feeling and when's it going to end, that's okay. They need that outlet, that fresh set of ears. Oh, Dee's kind of relaxed and she's kind of comfortable about that. Maybe it's like not so bad. Maybe I don't need to take it to that next level. I
let, let,
I like that.
let's talk a little bit about repetition and how it affects programming. It programs people's minds, and how much repetition is how that affects the subconscious mind. Because actually, that is one of my next areas in the bad is the fact that repetition to the subconscious mind is just like factual information. If you put in a certain amount of repeats, the subconscious mind will just accept that as, oh, that's the common answer to the problem, or that's the common answer to the situation. is whatever is repeated. And a lot of the stuff that is going on these days, they're suggesting we do certain things, but they're not. But no one is actually saying or questioning. Okay, well, if we do this, what are we taking away by doing this? If I stop hugging people, what is the what is the other side of that? What am I losing? Because my immune system is also affected by my social environment, and like the power of touch is certainly one of the most recognizable human characteristics that can make people feel better and really change people's feelings. I mean, you can I know, like a lot
And
of public
strengthen their immune
speakers.
system too.
You already see this outreach for social connection in Italy. I've been incredibly moved by all the videos I've been seeing of people just on their balconies or in their windows, and they're singing and playing music, and they're all singing together. And this is what, like, even if we are supposed to stay inside, and this is supposedly helping, I really don't know one way or another. I'm just kind of like going with what's going on.
So
People
Tyler's
are still,
asking for tips, you guys. Tips to reduce the stress and anxiety during this issue. So seeing as we're raising excellence, we need to raise the excellence for the current situation as well, right?
Well, the
well,
tips come on show number 2, by the way.
Oh, the actual tips.
We're gonna,
Wednesday, so
you're gonna
tune
have
in
to wait
Wednesday,
to
7:30.
to
But don't
the
hang up yet, because there'll be more
no,
good discussion today.
not Wednesday's show, but the second show that's going to be 2 weeks.
They have
from
to
now.
wait for 2 weeks. This is the Instant
Yeah, that's where
Gratification
the
Society.
skills and solution.
Can we give them a tip?
We can give him a
I have a
tip.
tip.
Suppose you can.
Okay, you have a tip.
I have a tip
volunteer
too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mindfulness, meditations, just kind of being in the moment, re-grounding yourself. Gee, I think lately I have to do meditations like twice a day, and that kind of didn't cover it for me. And then I had to ring my guys here because I just felt so heavy. And then just by talking to them and just engaging with them and really, I don't know, I think we were talking about paper airplanes in one conversation and doing all of that. Just silly things, just kind of lighten that mood just for me. So if that helps, just, oh my gosh, I'm doing silly things with the kids. I think I made a spaceship yesterday with my son because he felt like it, and it's still sitting in my living room. Just to lighten the mood, keep that, fill your heart full of love. And then once that's full, it's going to be easier interacting with others, like your neighbors or your friends and family, because you're already full. And so if they're needing that step back and need to, download information to you and give, they want feedback, they're seeking something, you've got that already there for them.
But hang on, how do you fill your heart with love when there's this oppressive fear from everyone, everywhere, just like squishing us?
You have to take the moment to find gratitude in your life.
Says the girl eating ice cream.
And I am very gratuitous for it.
Or
I have ice cream
grateful.
in my coffee.
I think gratuitous is what the ice cream is, but grateful is what you are.
I was going to take this back into, like, my tip was evaluating what your routines are. Like, if you're about to be snowed in for, and I've lived in Nebraska, so this is, a potential of happening. If you're going to be snowed in for a couple of days or a week, you want to know what you have to look forward to when you wake up in the morning, because nothing sucks more than waking up and being like, I have nothing to do. I'm just going to go back to, sometimes it's nice, but like having things to look forward to in your day. And when all of your activities are based outside the house and outside of looking into yourself, this is a really, really, what's the word? A time that people are hesitant or reluctant to like go into. So, evaluating your routines and like what you're doing on day to day is going to give you a lot of information on what you're going to be able to handle.
I'm hearing that a lot. People are turning it switching it like that and turning it into an opportunity to do the things that they wanted to do, talk to people who they wanted to talk to because they've been forced to take time off work, to engage, to do activities that are on your to-do list that you really want to do. You need to be filling your heart right now to kind of calm the like the global like ominous of it all.
Now, one of the things I pointed out here is blindness due to pride, and I'm surprised that nobody challenged me on that. But the trauma economy is, and I'm basically saying that the whole economy, the whole world economy, is based on essentially trauma, and effectively, this is the reason that we're constantly being thrown into more and more perilous situations, is because that's what runs the economy these days. The prison industrial complex, the defense industrial complex, medical industrial complex. All these are driven by people that are essentially experts, but it's their pride in their profession and their professional and their education with these institutions that blinds them to the reality of the situation. I think just the other day there was a MIT graduate. He's got 4 different MIT doctorates, I think, and he was essentially saying that like the modern medical system doesn't accept the actual definition of what the immune system actually, like what they understand the immune system to be. They're operating off an immune system model that's like 100 years old, and that's the modern system, and that's the average doctor that you're going into to address your concerns, and they're completely blind to the reality of like the latest information on what actually boosts the immune system, and it's not the things that most people are thinking.
Mm. I,
I
I
mean,
saw that video as well, and also to help protect your immune system as well. That was also in that video.
So
I
you
don't
get,
think people realize how much their thoughts and their feelings, especially when they're not acknowledged, unacknowledged thoughts and feelings, how much they affect your physiological body, like
yeah,
your hormones, your immune system, the
the
quality of your
muscles,
skin,
the
your muscle,
fascia.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything. It that's why the book The Body Keeps the Score is named what it is, because it's all talking about unresolved issues and how all of this energy doesn't leave the body, and the body you can literally read it on someone's body what they've been through if you know what you're looking for.
And if anybody would like that, I can certainly interpret it from a photo or a video. Just let me know. Psychosomatic therapy in action.
I
Amen.
was I was gonna say response to what Mike, when he was saying he was surprised that no one challenged him. Uh, I never thought to challenge him because part of one of the lessons that I learned in IFS is sometimes the ego is the only thing standing in the way of someone not surviving. I know that I'm not the best at phrasing things. So if you're in imminent danger and you have no escape, um, you do have an escape. As awful as this is to put on the table, you can take your life. No one wants to admit that that is a choice that you have, and the only thing standing in between that choice is sometimes your ego saying, "No, I don't deserve this. I deserve to live. I deserve whatever it is. I'm entitled to this." And when that ego takes control, sometimes it doesn't want to relinquish the reins, and it controls through adulthood, and then you get it taking control over decisions that it really shouldn't. It doesn't. It's not entitled to. Um, so that made perfect sense to me when you're like trauma creates pride. I like to call it ego, but
Well, the idea here, the ugliness, the things that nobody wants to look at, but those are the things that are the reality of the current situation in a lot of the society and what people are, encountering. These are things, these are three examples of the things that most people are encountering, but they don't really want to look at it. Nobody wants to look at it. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, that's what's so confronting about the current situation that we're in, is because it is, and people don't like, well, people who haven't looked in at themselves and dealt and move and like healed their trauma, it's confronting, and they don't want that. They want the situation gone so that they can get back to their automation.
Yeah.
Well, that's what your stress response. Well, that's at least what their stress response has taught them is can't you can't change this from happening. All you can do is lessen the amount of time, maybe maybe shorten the amount of time it's here, and you can get away with it or away from it. You can stop it for a certain amount of time. So it would make sense that that idea would translate into adulthood, where you're like, I don't really care about fixing the problem. I just don't want to deal with it right now. I want it to go away.
Mm.
I've locked everything else
So
in the closet. Why can't I put that
yeah,
there too?
that would be like a layering effect. So they've got everything else that they've got to deal with, and then so they've got that trauma there. They've got just their day-to-day living that they're trying to kind of upkeep, and then that's all of a sudden stopped. Like even forced stopped. Like what happens to all the people that rely on their jobs, that don't have full-time jobs, they have casual jobs where they don't get any pay in this intermediate moment. Like uh, that would be so much pressure. And that's, I don't know if it's ominousness or if it's pressure that I'm feeling. Not sure.
Well, that could also be stress, right? Characterize the
Mm,
stress.
Yeah.
And certainly
yes.
stress is definitely a killer, because stress is like creating physical reactions in your body that are shutting down different functions of your body to essentially create that fight or flight, where your muscles and your reaction time is enhanced, and everything else like your digestion and stuff is completely shut down. But if you keep doing that over time, it's going to affect your body in a lot of bad ways.
Mm.
Yeah. Speaking of affecting body in bad ways, I just got a message from Dennis who said that Luca is sick and that's why he's not here today.
I'm sorry to
I was
hear that.
thinking of you.
Yeah. Yes, we're thinking of you, definitely.
So the second area, the bad, let me highlight the three areas that I thought were of interest. Let me pick up on my thing here again. So, for those of you that are familiar with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, um, like the reality of the situation is one in which the body has and like every second, there's like 2 million inputs coming into our body. And then those are disseminated by our subconscious and conscious mind. And it all comes down to our conscious mind, which can focus on about 5 to 9 things at any one time. And so you're going from 2 million inputs to 5 to 9.
And do you know how your brain selects those inputs?
Well,
Based on
By
your
there's a lot of
past.
decisions going on
No, no,
that
no.
based
It's
people aren't really aware
based on
of.
your past threats,
experiences.
like what past experiences and what is classified as a threat, your map, basically. The map that your brain has written of when I feel this way, when I see that, when this happens, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
these are
Usually an
all, these could
erroneous
be
map.
limiting beliefs, these could be cognitive biases, these could be totally
Fallacies.
irrational beliefs. They could
I
be
wanted
fallacies.
I
But
wanted to tie this into the last comment you made about the repetition and pattern. This is a repetition. This is a pattern, and this is factual evidence for your amygdala, your reptilian brain, of whether this is a safe situation or not. And that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with trauma. You're not necessarily dealing with
Realistic.
conscious thought. You're dealing with rational thought, but it's on a survival mode and in a different part of the brain than logical, calm understanding.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so those fear-based decisions, they're made in your amygdala, which is like the reptilian brain, what they call it, the reptilian brain, right? So very reactive, very protective. But even when observing any kind of situation, people who base their interpretation of that situation on their past experiences, um, it's not necessarily about trauma. It could be just like, you know, a blue car can never be in an accident, so therefore it wasn't a blue car, it was a white car. But you witness an accident with a blue car, but you have some kind of a bias, brain bias against blue cars being an accident because of something happened in childhood, and you will always say it's a white car even though it's obviously blue. You know, these kind of things. There are some weird things that happen inside our brain when we select the 2 million inputs, and we select which ones to actually come through the forward consciousness.
I see this happen with my client when I'm driving with her. If I am merging into a lane and there's a car coming at us either sideways, she can't look at it. She will just literally block it, or she will gasp and scream, and her whole body tenses up. And she'll do the same thing if you hit like a manhole cover or you hit a bump and it's a little bit too hard and it startles her, especially after she has seen a car almost merge or like not stop in an appropriate manner where it looks like they might go through. Then she's more and more likely to be startled by those rough noises and movements in the car. And I can see it's a pattern. Come to find out, she's been in multiple car accidents. So
Yeah, and so the way that happens is the first thing that happens, the car merging will trigger a response in her brain that'll grab her frontal lobe thoughts and pull them into the amygdala. And once they're spinning in the amygdala, anything else will all just feed into that same thing. So she may not understand that she's feeding into the same thing, or that her focus is now on aberrant things that might be dangerous. But then the manhole cover becomes a danger because she's already in the amygdala thinking.
and then the sadder part about this, it's sad, but it's also like a very telling and insightful. Is her first reaction is to apologize.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Well,
okay. So there's another pattern of saying, I have a problem with this, I need help, I'm not dealing with it, and then someone basically telling her she's got to deal with it herself and something she should be sorry for experiencing.
Mike's got that
Right.
we're off topic
Well-
face.
Well,
I
that's
was-
the no. Actually, that's kind of a layered bunch of trauma there. You know, because
I was
effectively
was
she's
gonna-
going from one trauma to another because she's apologizing for having the feeling. To me, that
Trauma
says
is-
that there's like layered traumas there.
As you grow, as you like progress, if you don't catch it quick enough, you're gonna do that. You're gonna find out. I can't tell you how many clients where we first start talking out and it's like surface level, like, oh yeah, bam, 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 this, and this is what I have an issue with. And then 6 weeks later, 6 months later, they're like, I remembered something, or this is something I didn't think was an issue. I thought it was taken care of, but now it's repeating and it's coming back.
Yeah.
And it's a layer because you have to start with that first layer of trauma that you most recently experienced and peel back layer by layer until you get to the reason you thought this was okay in the first place. And that is the hardest one because you were usually pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the worst example I can think of is the little baby Albert experiment. And they wanted to see if loud noises or some type of conditioning in babies. And so they put a little rabbit in front of a 1-year-old baby. He was named Albert, and they'd bang big noises behind him, frightening him. And they worked out, yeah, okay, they don't need the loud noises anymore. He's just afraid of the rabbit now. a soft rabbit. But as he became older into adult, it morphed from this rabbit to anything white or fluffy. He didn't have fear of Santa Claus, like I think fluffy items and white items, and he unfortunately had the same level of fear associations with that because it morphed.
Yeah, that makes sense because his mind didn't have a rational, like, as he got to be an adult, he was like, oh, a rabbit isn't actually scary. I have no reason to feel this fear. It must be something else. So then anything associated with that was a potential trigger because he couldn't actually, like, if someone had held the symbols up and crashed them in front of him and he was like, oh, that noise scared me, he'd have a rational, like, depiction. When you don't understand what you're learning and what's going on, and you're just having to go with the flow, essentially, it fragments in the minds of a child, and that's where you get strange, I say strange, but like weird phobias of just random things. The one I think of is on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's afraid of the Velcro on her shoes. Spoiler alert, it's because her mom was supposed to fix her shoes and it didn't. So she associated being kidnapped and her mom leaving with the sound of Velcro. So every time she'd hear Velcro, she'd scream and run away.
That's a great example of how easily people can be traumatized, though. Like the sound of Velcro could represent a trauma, as an experience.
Anything.
Or
yeah.
a feeling, like someone
Mike.
correcting you.
Mike, I have a question. So how would the neuro-linguistic programming, how would that look at the moment? Are you thinking, when you said that, what came to mind to me was like all of the channels, like posting crazy people fighting over and over and over again. And then talking about fighting and arguments and punch-ups over toilet paper and those things. Because there's not just the sounds that are being triggered, there's also the visual aspect that are the triggers as well.
Well, I mean, that's where that's one of the other points I have is that, like, to the subconscious mind, repetition equals essentially facts. And I think one of the things that they're trying to really put in people's minds is that it's a conflicted society where you're always at you need to be fearful of everybody around you in every situation, and that's what they're reinforcing. And the reality is that's it's really the opposite of that we need to actually collaborate with other people to make our lives better. And so they're steering us away from that. But that's one part of the problem with the trauma economy and the the economic situation that we're in as it is it's a downward spiral into the black hole, because it's only going to get worse instead of working to get better. The answer is, well, we need to kill a couple million people. We need to eliminate this other threat. We need to, fight our way from one thing to another. All these things are subconscious, attempts to manipulate our subconscious mind to think a certain way.
For some reason, I'm reminded of the scare, like the stranger danger scare back when I was a child. I remember before that happened, we used to go everywhere all the time, and by myself, come home when the streetlights turn on, and then it was, no, you cannot like go outside and play by yourself, don't talk to strangers. And that was totally discounting the fact that most kidnappings or physical and sexual assault towards children happens like either within the family or with someone that the family knows. Like it's actually very rare for someone just to randomly walk up and be like, ooh, this is a nice child, I think I'll kidnap them today. Or even to like stalk them and hunt them that's
You
so
say
like
you say it's very rare, but it happened to me. Some random stranger came up to me as a child and said, "Hey, you're a nice child. Come with me." And I said, "No, thank you, sir." But
But see, as young children, they can't like the postman is a stranger. The people at the supermarkets are strangers. What is at what they don't kind of say what a stranger is. They just say a scary person's going to approach you. Well, as a small child, grown-ups are scary, even if they look friendly. They are huge. They are giants.
yeah. So a random listener calling himself Eric F says that so far he just learned to fear rabbits and Velcro, and he hopes that we come up with some kind of a counter to that.
Well, like I said, that's part two.
Part two, you have
Well,
to
let me
wait
let me
2
give you the
weeks.
third thing with the bad, and let me tell you, the bad and the ugly. There's a lot more than three, but these are the three that I came up with, and being this 1 hour show, that's what we've got. So the third one I've got for the bad is somewhere between 50 and 150,000 times a day.
Oh no, what a terrible time to freeze. Hello? Are we losing the internet? Oh, sorry, you have broken up, and there's some kind of a message that our internet was unstable for a second. So all we heard, all the listeners heard, was somewhere between 100 and 150,000 times a day, and that's when you stopped.
So micro thoughts, little bitty thoughts in your head that pop up and disappear, you know, as quick as they show up, but they are negative in nature 80% of the time, or on average. This probably has a lot to do with the amount of advertising and certainly the news and a lot of the different things that are input into our brains. As you mentioned earlier, the reptile brain
Amygdala.
is the area that gets the best response. And so a lot of the advertisers and a lot of the news people and a lot of the politicians and so forth use that trigger to get a response that they want. But that triggers that negative, that firing of the negative continues to be enhanced by a lot of the modern media and modern approaches to getting people's attention. And so that kind of conditions our mind into having a lot of negative thoughts. And so this affects us in a negative way, in which we have a great deal of fears about failure, fears about success, fears about all kinds of different things. But more than likely, these are fed by a lot of negative micro thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
And I know that
so
Deirdre, hang on just 2 seconds. Deirdre said how is neuro linguistic programming in our society? It is used every single day in every single marketing message, everything like it's ubiquitous pretty much everywhere in the internet. Anybody who's trying to convince you of anything, religious, political, whatever.
in movies.
I just wanted to really, with my comment, I just wanted to really focus on a real example that people see every day, and so that they can notice it. And so when they see similar things similar to that, like with any type of marketing, really, they can recognize it.
So since we're going back to this, I want to comment because I skipped over. I was like, I'm just gonna let it go because we're moving on. I'm gonna be mature, but we've gone back to the conversation.
No, don't be mature. That's silly.
Yes. One of my favorite ways to explain this is a non-threatening way, and horror movies. I found out that horror movies, the pitch of the very intense moment where you're supposed to feel like peak fear, and this is supposed to be the most horrifying moment ever, that pitch is based off the sound of an infant screaming.
Oh, like Vaticanus, the demon who harvests the baby's screams.
Well, in any biological human, I guess I shouldn't say any. There's me generalizing again. Most humans will have a biological response to that. I mean, women who are breastfeeding, if they hear a child crying down the aisle, they will start lactating. So your brain has like this fear response. It's used in a bunch of. I watched Bird Box with my Fitbit on, and I tried to remain calm. I actually was not impressed with the movie. I didn't see what was so horrifying about it, but you bet your ass, my heart rate was up like I was just terrified this entire time. And I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of disappointing that they just put in a bunch of music that tricked me into feeling afraid just to skip over the plot line. Yeah, that was like it's used in everything. It's used in our commercials, the music we hear, everything.
Tyler says that his blood boils when he hears babies screaming. Depends what kind of scream, though.
No, not really. If because it's meant to trigger. It's meant to trigger. Like, I gotta get this sorted. It really does. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta get this sorted. I've got to really really fix this. Not to like panic or anything. It's more like the urgency. It's like this instant sense of urgency.
And
And
I
yeah,
was gonna say, and a long time ago, a child crying in, not good shelter or in a cave or something can attract animals. Like these are biological responses, not rational thought, which led me into my other comment about how the brain, when the amygdala brain, or I'm not saying that, when the amygdala kicks in, it shuts down the higher thinking brain. You are not able. This is, I get really angry at some people when they're like, just calm down, just take a couple breaths and then think logically, think through this. And they don't understand that when you are amygdala hijacked, you cannot think logically. You can only think through the danger that your mind is saying is here, and then you need to calm yourself down, which includes self-soothing or soothing from other people, to tell your body that it is actually safe, and then you can process what's going on.
You can try to force your brain to the logical, to the frontal lobe by doing, like I said another week, by doing mathematics or trying to figure out a problem, following a recipe, things like that that need your frontal lobe's discernment that amygdala doesn't have, and then your thoughts will be pushed to the frontal lobe sort of by
A
force.
lot of
okay.
a lot
I've
of
got a
people
question.
try to eat. That's my last comment, because
Okay.
chewing calms you down.
I'm just thinking of like 2 in the morning, having to do a nappy change with a Bonds one and stupidly getting the one with all the little buttons on it. I just remember being there and just like after after a while, it just that it's actually handy to kind of just like I don't even have to think. I just know I just gotta open, change, pop it back on. All right, let's go back to bed. It's efficient as long as you don't allow your emotions to get run away with that urgency. It's actually quite useful and efficient.
Absolutely. That is one of the things, the functions of your brain is to try and economize, and that's why we do a lot of stereotyping, or why stereotyping is one of the features of our brain. But that's where we have to make like a conscious choice about what it is we are going to do in particular situations, and actually implement that into our practices so that we are doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing, because otherwise we're just allowing, you know, the those that program the media to essentially program our brain to what our response is going to be. But shoot,
I'm
I
starting to
had
feel
something
that
else I
there's going to
wanted
be
to talk about in
homework.
regard to
You have some
the
kind of a
bad,
homework face on.
but I guess we're going to have to move on to the good. And so the good, the
He
three
got you.
things that I wanted to mention about the good is that number one, we can. I guess what I'll say is a lot of this amygdala uh, focused information and so forth is actually doing brain damage to us, because it is downgrading the function of our neocortex, and actually depleting that part of our brain. And so if we continue to like focus on stuff that like um, you know features our animal nature rather than our logic and artistic functions, we end up just an animal, and our neurocortex is really kind of empty. But in regard to the good, the 3 points I want to make on the good is number one, we can observe what's going on. And just by being able to take a moment and step back and look at what is actually going on, like for example, when things are being repeated, we should right there alone, we should click in with, that's a very potentially programming that we should be thinking about, and what's the negatives of that. The second is we can constantly choose what programs run in our head. So instead of us just allowing TVs and movies and the news and everything else to tell us what we're going to do, we can actually choose to do that. And that like, choosing the reaction, choosing like what is the situation, what is the correct response to it. That's what, practicing that till I get to the point, just like riding a bicycle, in which I can do it without my conscious mind really being engaged. Then you've made a conscious choice and created a program in your mind that's beneficial. And then the third thing is because we've got all this garbage going on in our world, in our society, we're using a very small percentage of our potential, probably in the range of 5 to 10%, but it could be much less, honestly. And because of that, the we've got a great deal of potential. And every time we unwrap one of these traumas or unwrap one of these false programs or false beliefs, we are enhancing our potential. And it just takes, I mean, if you want to play the lottery, this would be the lottery to play: getting rid of your traumas and getting rid of your false and limiting beliefs and cognitive biases. Each one of those things could be a lottery ticket to your future that will just blow your mind.
So how can we get rid of
What do you
these
guys think about
traumas?
that?
It'd
Well,
be like
First, you're gonna have to.
I would say like now's a good time to do it because it's really intense and really in your face. I can see all my trauma. It's just like it's popping up like there's no tomorrow. But it's a great opportunity to heal all of that.
From personal experience, these are my own personal words. This is what I would tell a friend who is coming to ask me, like, when is the thing? When is it time? One, when you love yourself enough to want something different, and that is a hard one. There's going to be a bunch of people on here. They're going to be like, well, I love myself, so why am I not healing? You might need to evaluate that, your answer to that question. And the other is you have to be in a safe place. That was one of the things that got me the hardest, and it got my husband the hardest. I remember being really upset, and I kept telling him, what I needed. I was like, I just need you to hold me. I need to comfort. I need you to acknowledge that you believe this is happening, that this is what I'm experiencing. And he was like, I believe this is happening. What I don't understand is why now? Why, after all these years of like you supposedly working through it, getting better, you've gotten better, you've done so much better. And I realized that we had reached a level of communication where I felt safe enough where I could describe what was going on and what I was experiencing. And as soon as I felt safe enough to deal with it, I don't know if it's the universe, gods, or whatever, but they were just, they had this pretty little package of darkness all wrapped up in some cute little bow and handed it right back to me. And they're like, here you go. Responsibility. Or I think the quote is achievement is always met with greater responsibility.
yep.
One of the things, Willow, you pointed out to me in regard to preparing for this show was a little worksheet, I guess, from teachtrauma.com, and they talked a little bit about the economic impact of trauma, and in particular, they were talking about child abuse. And one of the things that I think probably would blow most people's minds away was the impact of child abuse. One instance of child abuse is effectively is about $6.1 million of impact on the economics of the of our society. And that, I mean, there's a whole bunch, and I'm sure we can put the link on the thing. There's a whole bunch of other information in regard to some of the economic impact. Honestly, I think that is way low, honestly, of all the things that people are doing these days, and the pursuits that we have in regard to the economy, and where technology and the pursuits of knowledge and technology is going these days. So much of it is going in the wrong direction, and it's all because of trauma, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and our inability to deal with it.
Mm. Where was I? I was going to ask Willow a question. So you were talking about what the trauma looked like for you. So what did the healing process look like? Because you mentioned about safe places and stuff like that. So is it kind of like where I'm just
Messy.
quietly kind of sitting there and being at peace
No,
and
absolutely not. No, it's it's messy. It's uncomfortable. It's ugly crying, apologizing when you shouldn't, uncontrollable outburst of just anger. It's intense. The way I imagine it is if people were balloons, there's a bunch of paint inside, and once you like poke at the balloon, all of it just starts coming out. Like and you just have to observe it and see what it is before you can decide what you want to do with it. It's not at all peaceful. It's not this, I'm going to sit in a meadow and meditate until all my healing just, floats up into the sky. It's not rainbows and unicorns. It's calling your friends and saying, crying and going, am I crazy? Please tell me. I actually would, it would be a relief for you to say, yes, please check yourself into a mental institution. So at least I have an answer. I can't tell you how many people I have talked to. And it's actually, I sent you a playlist earlier, and one of the lines in one of the songs is, I really hope this isn't how it's supposed to be. Uh, I hope there's something wrong with me. And for a long time, I used to hope that I was a normal person, but it gave me a lot of relief knowing that there is something wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. Because then you can start to address the wounds and heal them. But that Teach Trauma website is fascinating. It's a great resource. And it even has a bunch of links to, I think, like 20 different movies that highlight how people, what the experience feels like, because that's the hardest thing to describe. You've probably seen people dealing with trauma every single day, but because you haven't experienced it in that way, you don't know, you don't have the words to put to what's going on.
Well, I like that because then it's easier to discuss. Because if I can't kind of go, if I can't kind of go, oh, I can't come up with the words. I can't just put my finger on it. It looks like this, but well, see, I use pictures with my therapy. But then they can just replicate it, even if it's not exactly the same experience. It's like an experience. Then that's okay. The words will still help bubble up something.
Well, I would also like to say that I don't want to scare people away from feeling that they can't deal with their problems, and that trauma is something that it's extremely difficult to tackle, because there is a lot of ways to go about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tackling the largest traumatic experiences in your life, but it could be simply tackling some of the limiting beliefs that you have, and those can be very simple to do. And the thing is as we practice doing it, and then we also recognize that like the world is full of traumas, and that we need to be gentle with each other, as well. And so, like, when something comes up where we feel like, oh, I've been traumatized, or, oh, I think I might have traumatized someone else. I raised my voice and I said something that maybe I said it in a way that, I got a funny reaction or something like that. That could be trauma, you know, and we need to be able to recognize that and step back and say, hey, I just said something to you. I felt you might have misunderstood that. Uh,
Mm.
do you mind if I talk to you about that for a second? That can be the way that we unravel so much of the harm that's going on around the world, and the harm that we participate in doing to ourselves and other people. I don't think it's got to be that hard. Honestly, I think it can be really, you can really start to pull the strings and unloosen the knots by journaling. And that keys into the journaling part of the thing, because we're running
Well,
low on time.
I was gonna
Anything
say
you want to
one
say
more.
before we go to that? Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say one more thing. Um, I I almost like not confront, but I almost wanted to argue with you about like not scaring people away, because anyone who has been dealing with this trauma, they've had it all like rolling around inside. Yes, that idea is scary, but it's also like you've already had it inside for so long that sometimes you've experienced the worst of it and you're like, it can't be worse. It can't last as long as what I'm dealing with now. And they just go for it. And for the people who are scared, um, there have to be people who are like, no, it can't be any worse than what I've gone through, and let it all out so that we can prove to the other people, I see why you were scared. It was difficult. This is what I went through, but I did make it through, and so can you. That's all I had to say on that.
Good, good segue or good ending.
So does anybody want to talk about their journaling experience and how they've been doing with journaling?
No.
Yeah, I did a successful one. I did my first A4 piece of paper, like A4, like lots and lots, kind of came out. So I'm very proud of myself.
So
Oh,
I think that's like that, that first part of the good that I was talking about, being observant. I think journaling is a great way to observe,
Hmm.
observe ourselves, observe the situations that we have, and potentially think about. But go ahead, Willow.
oh, it was just actually, it was kind of off topic because I don't think we give enough like encouragement, like even for like small little things. So I was jokingly thinking in my head, I was like, every time someone accomplishes something, I want to put on a party hat and get a kazoo and just be like, do 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 do
Do it.
do.
Do
I don't
it.
have it right now. I got a
Get
hood,
what?
but I look like
I want to be celebrated. I worked
woo!
really hard. I put like, I went
Congratulations,
from one sentence and like I
Jasper.
did like a whole
That's awesome.
yay.
I'm like doing all of the, snapping. that is
um,
that is fantastic with your journaling. I'm excited.
thank
It's
you.
always exciting when
Yeah.
you write a whole page. I was excited because I was started to move from journaling to writing letters, which is a different kind of journaling for me. I found that journaling was a very safe place for me. It was no matter, it was for all those thoughts that I didn't understand quite yet, and therefore I couldn't convey them to other people, but they were just stuck in my head and they were taking up room. Now it's a lot easier to write to other people and convey what I actually want to say to other people. And I'm actually writing more. I'm writing like 2 or 3 pages of letters to people. And
Show you little. Do you have your little pen with you? Oh, it's not little, is it?
I don't
It's
have my
beautiful.
one with the feather. It's in the other room. But I got
Okay.
so excited about writing with my quill with the feather that I got another one that I can carry with me. So I have this little pouch with like an ink carrier, which I need to fix because I think it's leaking.
I can't wait to get
Now
my
I
letters.
understand why
She
people like pens.
handwritten them. Yeah, with a quill and everything. She's like showing me and dunking it in, and so
Yeah.
much patience. It's like you're writing a little bit of art there, because you got to make sure it doesn't splodge, and you've got to make sure it's correct spelling. Or no, I wouldn't really care. I'd just be so touched. I have a letter in the mail. It's like handwritten with calligraphy.
It's not quite calligraphy, but it does. The experience is a more I used to hesitate to use this word because I always attached it to a sexual nature, but it is a sensual experience. Like, and I have never attributed that word to anything other. Like, it's always been sex is sensual. That's always the connotation that I've had. But I was sitting there writing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm loving the feel of this. I'm loving how like there's the flow and the sounds of the scratching on the paper and the ink, like dipping the ink into the thing. It was very similar, and I hate admitting this, especially on live, but it was very similar to the day
She keeps talking.
I poured myself a drink, and I poured the
Yes.
alcohol
Oh.
over the ice cubes, and then poured the soda in, and it was like crackling, and I was just like, yes, this is going to be a good drink. This is going to hit the spot.
Yep.
That's exactly what the writing did. I was like, this hit a spot I didn't even know was there.
Nice.
Oh.
That's why Mike challenged
nice.
us to that to begin with, right?
Well,
Because you
Absolutely.
knew
what
this
I'm
was
liking
going to happen.
about Mike kind of having the like accountability to it all. I like it because it motivates me not just to I need to do it, but I've kind of moved on from that to just like, oh Mike, I need to let you know this like great thing happened. It's that caringness to keep me accountable. Has kind of moved on to just, oh well, he's actually excited for me. You guys are excited for me, so that's more than just doing it because I don't want to be seen not doing it.
Well, and the other thing is that Mike really cares about anybody writing a journal. So you listeners or us. And so when we write journal, it makes him happy. So that's another reason to do it.
I'd
Yeah,
say
I don't know, Agnieszka, did you want to talk about your experience journaling this past couple weeks?
I've been kind of preoccupied with the apocalypse. I have a house guest. I've taken somebody in from overseas who came in back to Canada from a foreign country. And so we've been running around getting supplies for her new home, and, well, for me, for the apocalypse. And so it's been interesting. It's been a very, it's been a novel experience for me. I've never experienced anything like this week before. So no, my journaling has not been kept up, but I've done a lot of living.
Well, that's the beauty of this, is there's no wrong answer. It's just sometimes you take a break and then you go, there was like an inclination or an inspiration, and you go back to doing it, and it is even more powerful. And so I would not consider that a negative. I would consider that just a situation in regard to priorities.
Yeah.
But one of the last things I'll mention is drawing. We were just having a little conversation earlier about my own experience as a child drawing, and I had a kind of a traumatic experience where I just stopped drawing, like during my high school years, and I never realized like how much that that was part of my expression, and how much it made a difference in myself and other people's lives. And so sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be writing things down. It can be things like drawing or doodling that can affect you in a way that is useful to recognizing and observing who you are, who as a person. And so it's still something that I think people should recognize that there's a lot more to this than just writing on a piece of paper.
Sorry.
I'd also include musical expression, even if you don't come up with the music. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do reaction videos to someone singing their song. And a lot of times I hear the phrase, that person has been through my pain, because they hit the note. They have made their voice make that vibration before, and then they turned it into music. And that's like that's a sharing, that's a powerful sharing
Sorry.
tool. It's okay. We love your lovely face on the screen anyways.
Yeah.
All right.
she's
Well,
beautiful.
I think
I
we're
love
over
nothing like
time.
We
We're
are.
over
Definitely
time.
overtime.
Okay.
But before, does anybody have anything important to say?
Wait,
And then
isn't
I'll
there
throw out a
homework for
conclusion.
Wednesday? There's
No,
no
why
homework?
would you?
Yeah, well,
We
That's why.
why? You're that student.
No, I.
She complains about it that much. You would think that she would kind of.
You're the student that's like, teacher, aren't you going to assign homework?
I want the extra credit. No.
We're not being graded.
no, well, I will say that, we did talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in regard to the trauma economy, and we came up with some points. If people want to think about this in preparation for the
2 weeks from now,
review of this,
Monday.
because we're going to talk about more about the solutions to the trauma economy and a lot of the other things that make these things and skills that one can adopt.
So
that
hang on,
can
how
make
does
this
this
a lot
work?
easier.
So we have this trauma economy show today. Next week is Dennis's show about freedom. And then the week after, we go back to trauma economy to revisit this topic and really delve deeper into it.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about skills and solutions that people can use, that can really kind of unlock a lot of this stuff, or at least give them a much greater opportunity to take the awareness that we've scratched upon. But, like if you've got a situation in which, pride is affecting your particular approach to the work that you're doing or something like that, or you feel like you're becoming isolated, or you want you feel like you are having a lot of negative thoughts, all those kind of things. These are observations that you can make over the next few weeks, and then we'll come back and give you some solutions to that.
Oh, guys, are we available for our audience if they need to reach out
For
and
sessions.
give us a call?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're all various forms of life coaches and consultants. So anytime you feel like you want to reach out and ask a question, we're more than happy.
You can reach us on
That
our
is-
Facebook page or messages on Twitter. Either way, Facebook page is probably the best.
RaisingExcellence.live is the website.
Yes.
Right? And they can.
It is not
find more
finished, but
information.
Yes.
it looks really. It's looking really.
It is very not finished. It's a work in progress. We're busy people.
Just like
and we have
us.
to set it up for ourselves. So it'll get
But we're
beautified
doing it
soon.
live.
We're doing it live.
Well, we're doing.
So with all that said, really appreciate you guys' input. I thought this was a really valuable show. I'm hoping that our audience thinks that way. And if there's any questions or concerns or comments in regard to that, how we might be able to do it better, the idea here is to create opportunity to absorb more value and give our audience more opportunity to be more aware, as well as develop skills and solutions that they can use to help themselves be better and realize more potential. So with that said, our shows are at
7:30. 7:30 p.m.
7:30
Eastern.
p.m. Eastern,
United States.
Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And thank you for your time and attention, and have a wonderful day. We'll see you on Wednesday.
See you on Wednesday. Bye.